Dodgers have won the game. I don't believe what I just saw. Here comes Brady. He's on front of the plate.
Baseball fans, it's time. This is Around the Big Leagues with Grant McCauley on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Hello again and welcome to Around the Big Leagues right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I'm Grant McCauley. He's Jensen Baker. These are the Kia Studios. In the next couple of hours, we're going to talk about a little bit of baseball. What's going on with the Braves? What's going on across Major League Baseball as we wind through September and head towards October. The playoff picture comes into focus. Justin, good to see you again. It's been quite a long time since we were sitting last night over at the park watching the Braves win a baseball game against the Mets. But good to see you right early.
Yeah, man, long time no see. And last night, got to see Braves win.
It's exciting, especially at home and down the stretch. Those have been hard to come by in the second half, so the Braves are looking for about everything they can take out of these wins. You can see Sean Newcomb throw a pretty good ball game, and of course, got to see a lot of minor league players on hand, honored before the game for the Braves. We'll get into that as we jump into our Chop Talk discussion just a little bit. But as always, guests, the show from courtesy of the WadeSport.com hotline. Today, we're talking about the history-making Cleveland Indians and their amazing winning streak, which ended last night. Scott Braun of MLB Network will join me in the second hour for that. You can always contact us on the Solomon Brothers Diamond text line throughout the show. It's 404-741-0929. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grant McCauley. He is at Baker Broadcast. Of course, the station at 92.9 The Game. You can like the show on Facebook by searching for Around the Big Leagues and subscribe to the podcast. It's on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. And we'll jump into the starting nine as we get the show started the way we always do.
The starting nine, the biggest headlines from coast to coast, here on Around the Big Leagues. Leading off.
All right, where else could we start? The Cleveland Indians made history for the last 3 weeks as they reeled off the longest winning streak in baseball in the last 101 years that ended at 22 games on Friday night with a 4-3 loss to the Royals. But this was a dominant run from Cleveland, which batted well over 300 as a team during the streak with an ERA well under 2. Given this incredible run by the Tribe, Justin, are they now the quote-unquote best team in baseball?
You know, the numbers are going to back it up. Forget the streak for a second. Just what they were able to do in that 22-game span, I think the answer is a resounding yes. They outscored their opponents, Grant, 105 runs, run differential. That's the most, and going back over 120 years in baseball over that span of 22 games. You mentioned that pitching with that ERA, and they did that with 18 different pitchers. So it's not like they were doing this with a core of 3 or 4 or 5 guys. They were doing it as a team, and I think when you're that deep and you have that many guys that can contribute, there's certainly a team that can get it done.
And that run differential is absolutely ridiculous. 105 runs during the streak. Red Sox have outscored their opponents by 110 runs all season long. They're a first-place team as well. You look at just about every other run differential in baseball, and it would put the Indians within shouting distance at least, and they've done it all in about a 22-game span. So pretty impressive, but also the pitching, as I talked about. Corey Kluber was the guy leading that charge. It was just impressive to watch who for the Indians was going to step up on a given night because, to your point, it wasn't always just the big names and the guys you'd look at. There were contributions up and down the lineup and up and down the pitching staff.
And for the longest part of that 22-game streak, they were doing it easily. Like, they weren't even in a lot of close games. Last night was just the 4th time in that entire 22-game span where they gave up 4 or more runs, but they were out hitting everybody. They had, 41 home runs during that stretch, MLB high. Every way that they were able to win in that streak was so impressive. It wasn't just comeback wins. They had the walk-off win the other night to get to 22, and then, of course, last night they only lost by a run. But that's a streak that I don't think we're going to see top for maybe 20, 30, 40, another 100 years.
I mean, you see every single year there's a team that wins 10, 12, 13, maybe 15 games in a row. But once you get to 20, pretty special. Hadn't happened since the A's way back in, 2002. And prior to that, you're going back all the way into the 1930s to get to the Cubs, I guess, that had a long winning streak, 21-game winning streak. And, of course, then the 1916 Giants, who aren't going to have any company.
They should have a little bit of an asterisk, though, there to the Giants. They had a tie in that 26-game run.
They did, but then they made it up the next day and won that game. So I'll give them that. But, yeah, there could be a little bit of a footnote for sure.
Batting second.
All right, Grant, the Dodgers can't win for losing lately. Of course, Los Angeles went from being the best team in baseball to just simply being one of the best. They've lost 15 out of 16 at one point. And, well, they're a better club than this, but getting their first taste of losing, it was pretty hard. As good as they were, they lost pretty hard. So the Dodgers be concerned about October.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit tough for them as of late, but I think that club, top to bottom, getting Clayton Kershaw back, having the pitching that they do, having the manager that they do, that kept them on a pretty even keel for a couple of years now, I got a lot of faith in the Dodgers to get into October and make some noise. But once you get there, all bets are off. You're in a 5-game series, a 7-game series, and as we've seen, despite the fact that they've been very good the last few years, there's no guarantees come October because some other team may just have your number.
You know, and it's one of those things, too, you almost throw it out like the preseason of football, whereas they had such a big lead, do these games really matter? And now can you focus in on October and kind of forget about the last month of the season? I think they can. I think they still have the talent.
Batting third.
All right, another storyline surrounding the Tigers, who had the pleasure of playing the Indians this week. And Wednesday's loss, Tigers catcher James McCann was ejected by home plate umpire Quinn Walcott for arguing about the strike zone. Rookie catcher John Hicks missed a fastball from Buck Farmer that knocked Walcott down a couple of pitches later. MLB has looked into it. They determined no ill intent. Brad Austin has denied any allegations for his club that happened on purpose as far as Walcott getting hit with a pitch. But that's a bad look for a frustrated Detroit team, I think. And they've had quite a few of those of late.
Yeah, and I think Austin might be on the hot seat just the way this whole season has gone for him. You talk about the frustrating moments. There's the brawls with Miguel Cabrera and everything adding up. And, you know, I've watched this 100 times, and if you look at it, from a catching standpoint, he said he got crossed up, but it was the first pitch of that sequence. I doubt it happened. My thing is, if you're going to do it, at least own up to it. Don't be that punk on the playground that pushes you down and then says, hey, look, I wasn't there. And that's kind of what it came across to me in postgame.
Batting fourth.
Well, Major League Baseball handed down punishment for the Red Sox, who, well, allegedly used an Apple Watch to steal signs in recent series against the Yankees, which just kind of adds to that rivalry. It's another chapter between those two teams that we're going to talk about. Boston fined for an undisclosed amount. Was the punishment really enough, Grant?
I'll keep it short and sweet. The Red Sox weren't going to lose draft picks. That wasn't going to happen. But baseball does need to take a long look at exactly what is permissible when it comes to sign stealing, because we know it goes on in dugouts and at fields across Major League Baseball and has for a very long time. I read a report this week that the Dodgers are apparently one of the best teams in baseball sign stealing, and you can look at their record and say that might be a little mitigating factor as to why. But I think you just got to decide what you want to do as far as technology. Once you brought replay into the fold, you opened up and put somebody in charge of looking at every single play and putting cameras on everything. It's a pretty easy way to relay things from time to time, I'd imagine, from replay to a manager, to a third base coach, and into a play.
It's a problem that baseball created themselves, so give them a slap on the wrist only seems like the right way to go about it.
Batting fifth.
Shohei Ohtani coming to the big leagues sooner than expected. This Japanese superstar for the Nippon Ham Fighters expected to be posted, leaving a lot of money on the table to do so, though, Justin. But it sounds like the Japanese superstar is planning to make that move this winter. Nippon stands to gain $20 million. Ohtani himself, though, will be subject to the rules that govern international signings. It's very convoluted, long story short, but the bottom line is he will not be getting the kind of 9-figure deal that Masahiro Tanaka received from the Yankees if he decides to come over before the age of 25. Kind of sounds like a bad business decision for the young man.
It kind of does, and when you think about it, there's so many factors that go into where he might end up. He's a dual threat, he's a hitting guy, he's a pitching guy. The question is Major League Baseball ready to manage that? How are they going to use him in the best way? And then when you think about it, does he want to be on the West Coast to be closer to Japan, or the East Coast in a larger market, say New York or Boston?
Right.
But then you look at it from a number standpoint, this guy's leaving a lot of money on the table. But I thought you made a great point last night, and this is a case with, is it worth coming to MLB to go ahead and just get in that market and then get the money later? Because as you noted last time when we were talking leaving the stadium, a lot of these players today, the way the baseball is designed, they get the money that they should have earned in the first couple of years of their career on the back end in that second deal. Well, maybe they don't produce as much, but they get paid for their previous resume.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see, internationally speaking, what kind of changes Major League Baseball continues to make, because Otani's a really special case. This is not a 16-year-old Dominican shortstop who's a superstar that everybody's excited about. This is a proven commodity in another league, and I think he certainly has made a case to deserve a very big contract.
Batting sixth.
The Yankees are headed towards October in great position to host a wild card game. Aaron Judge been the biggest story in the Bronx this year. Last year's sensation Gary Sanchez shouldn't be overlooked, though. He reached a milestone recently. Sanchez played his 162nd career game, giving him 50 home runs already, if you think about that in terms of a full season.
Yeah.
So New York may be young, but they've got some pretty serious power to build this team around.
They definitely do. We've heard about Aaron Judge all year long. Gary Sanchez kind of was playing the Robin to his Batman, if you will, despite the fact that Sanchez was the guy everybody was talking about this time a year ago. Those two guys, plus some of the young talent that they've got a couple of trades, and, of course, New York has money to spend. This is going to be a team that we may have been surprised that they were relevant this year so quickly after seeming like they might be going into a rebuild. Brian Cashman did a lot of good things on the fly, and it helps to have a lot of good talent playing the way that Sanchez, Judge, and others are. So I would say that the Yankees are in a pretty good place moving forward, and I would imagine that the Boston Red Sox probably aren't as excited about that as they thought they might have been for at least a couple of years after spending all the money they did.
Batting seventh.
The Nationals, the first team to clinch their division, now they'll head to October in hopes of finally advancing past the first round of the playoffs. Justin, they're hoping to have Bryce Harper back for the postseason, but still no firm timetable for the star right fielder's return. Can Washington win it all without Bryce Harper?
I don't think they could win it all with him. I think it's the biggest question. But that's the thing. I mean, the answer is sure they can because the competition that's still there. I think at the end of the day, it's still going to be the Dodgers and the Nationals. So how well do they match up against them? The thing that really helps the Nationals is their pitching, and I think that's what's going to get them over the hump. So to answer the question, yes, I think they can do it without Bryce Harper. The question is, I don't even think it matters if he's there.
And it's a question that has not been answered yet since 2012.
Batting eighth.
Well, the Astros have been the best team in the American League for most of this season, but the Indian streak hasn't gone unnoticed. And Houston manager A.J. Hinch of the Astros, he said something interesting on Friday night. Quote, someone had to win 20-plus games in a row to even be relevant with us. So that tells us what kind of season we're having. What do you think, Grant? That's definitely one way to look at it, but is he right?
He is right in terms of what they've done all season long, but the Indians just showed that it can turn on a dime that quickly. Momentum is the next day's starting pitcher, and for Cleveland, that next day's starting pitcher helped them out more nights than not. And the question has been for me with the Astros, what kind of starting pitching are they going to get night to night? Getting Justin Verlander is huge. Healthy Lance McCullers will be just about as big, in my opinion. Dallas Keuchel and Justin Verlander give you what you need, but 1 through 5, I really wonder about that rotation sometimes. You don't need them all in October, but they're going to have to get the same kind of contributions from that lineup. That's what they're dependent on, is the hitting, in my opinion. And if good pitching can beat good hitting in the playoffs, it could be a bad mix for the Astros, in my opinion.
It could be a short time for the Astros, too. If they go out in the first round, you're not going to be talking about how good the regular season was. So I like the arrogance, but at the same time, prove it to me in October.
And batting ninth.
Rounded out with this, the Cubs grinding out the NL Central, Brewers chasing them, and a wild card. Milwaukee was over 30 games out of first place last season. Chicago busy winning the World Series. Now they're fighting for one division race in the NL that's truly up for grabs. Cubs are up by 3 with 2 weeks to go. Very quickly, who you got?
I'm going to say the Cubs hold on. I think at the end of the day, they've got it, but I'm really, really impressed with what Milwaukee can do, and I like it because they're a young team. I think they'll be back in it next year.
All right, I give a slight edge to the Cubs. I do feel like they have it right now, and they've got the team on paper that can get it done. But, of course, we'll find out over the next couple of weeks, and I think baseball fans like a pennant race. Let's see if this goes right down to the wire. So that's our starting 9, and when we come back, we'll discuss the Braves. We're closing out the season, hoping to make the most of it here in September and seeing some young players and what they can do. We'll discuss all that next in Chop Talk right here on Around the Big League.
Time for Chop Talk. All your Atlanta Braves news right now on Around the Big Leagues.
Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Grant McCauley and Justin Baker with you here on Around the Big Leagues from the Kia Studios on a Saturday morning. Spend a couple hours talking about baseball every Saturday. It's okay. We've got the remainder of September. This will be exciting baseball in October. Of course, to talk about Braves, though, are going to spend their October beginning their planning for 2018. But one of the things that you look at with this team, Justin, is the fact that they have built one of the better minor league systems in all of baseball, if not the best minor league system. And this is the week where they honor those players. As a guy that's ridden up and down the roads on the buses with these guys, watching what they go through each and every season. Some of these guys, no bigger name than the Braves minor league system and perhaps all baseball minor league systems. And Ronald Acuna, who is Atlanta's Player of the Year, and quite possibly could be the Player of the Year in just about any publication or any outlet you look at. The guy had a pretty good season, and he had some pretty good company at SunTrust Park last night.
An amazing season accompanied by, amazing people around him. And I think it goes from the top down in the way that the Braves have restructured their entire farm system. It goes back to coaching, new instructors.
Yep.
They've really built this organization back up, and it's the John Hart mentality going back to his days when he was with the Indians. Now he built that team. So it was cool to see those guys at the ballpark last night. Mike Soroka, another one of them. And Grant, you look at it, they do have a lot of questions this offseason, but there are a lot of good questions to have. And I think the questions that come to mind are, what guys do you pull the trigger on now that you've seen them, they've had their time in the minors, they've gotten their accolades, Acuna is certainly one of them. I think a lot of these guys that spent most of their time in the minors and haven't had any big league time because there wasn't room, certainly are big league ready, and that's what they have to find out. The overall media scrum that came in is going to ask the questions.